And I thought I wanted a magazine that would not try to do what they were doing, which they do exceedingly well, but a magazine that would deal with the positive things in life. Magazines that would deal with things that people are proud of, uh, with successes.
For decades, two magazines sat in living rooms, barbershops, and beauty salons across Black America. They weren't just part of the decor, they were part of the family routine. You flipped through them while waiting for a cut, copied hairstyles for prom, clipped out recipes and college features, circled cars and homes that said, "Someday." Then, almost overnight, those magazines were gone. No grand farewell, no final commemorative issue that tied a bow on 70 years of history. Just silence and confusion. Today, we're telling the story of Ebony and Jet, how they rose from a tiny office in Chicago to become the heartbeat of Black media, how they helped ignite national change, and how the empire unraveled so quickly that people still say it felt like a vanishing act. To understand Ebony and Jet, start with the world they were born into. In the 1940s, most national media either ignored Black life or showed it through stereotypes. There were great Black newspapers, the Chicago Defender, Pittsburgh Courier, and others. But there wasn't a glossy, photo-driven national magazine that showcased Black achievement with the same style and reach as Life or Look. Enter John H. Johnson, a young Chicagoan with a sharp eye for what was missing. In November 1945, he launched Ebony. The origin story you may have heard is true. He used a $500 loan backed by his mother's furniture to get it off the ground. Here's why that matters. In 1945, a Black entrepreneur couldn't just walk into a bank and get a startup loan. That furniture wasn't a sentimental detail. It was collateral because the financial system wouldn't recognize his potential. From day one, Ebony's mission was simple but radical. Show Black life in full, glamour and grind, joy and struggle, ambition and achievement. It featured movie stars and ministers, entrepreneurs and educators, newlyweds and neighborhood heroes. The photos were lush, the layouts confident, the tone proud. If mainstream magazines suggested Black success was unusual, Ebony showed it was everywhere once you actually looked. By the early 1950s, the country was moving faster. News cycles tightened, civil rights battles heated up, and readers wanted timely updates. In 1951, Johnson launched Jet, a pocket-sized weekly built for speed. Quick articles, sharp photos, and a digest of what mattered now. Where Ebony was a monthly showcase, Jet was the weekly pulse, perfect for barbershop debates and bus ride reading. Then came 1955. 14-year-old Emmett Till was lynched in Mississippi. His mother, Mamie Till Mobley, insisted on an open casket. "Let the world see what they did to my boy." Jet made the courageous decision to publish those images. It's hard to overstate what that did. People who would never have witnessed the horror were forced to confront it. Those pages helped galvanize a movement that would reshape the nation. That's the power Ebony and Jet embodied at their best, not just chronicling history but moving it. They were where you went to see yourself, and sometimes to see the truth no one else would print. Behind the scenes, Johnson built an advertising strategy that was quietly revolutionary. He didn't just ask for ad buys. He showed corporate America a data-driven case that Black consumers had income, tastes, and loyalty, and that respectful advertising in a Black-owned publication paid off. Over time, names like Ford, Coca-Cola, and major department stores chose Ebony because it reached a growing nationwide audience that mainstream magazines routinely undervalued. Distribution also mattered. Johnson's team negotiated national newsstand placement and cultivated subscription drives through churches, civic groups, sororities, fraternities, and HBCUs. He understood something many media leaders forget. Community networks are distribution networks. If you make your audience feel seen, they'll turn into the best sales force you could ask for. By the 1960s and 70s, Ebony and Jet were woven into daily life. A household might have a Bible, a sewing kit, and a stack of ebony back issues. If you landed an ebony cover, it was a coronation. The roll call is legendary. Aretha Franklin, Diane Carroll, Sidney Poitier, Muhammad Ali, Michael Jackson, and later Oprah Winfrey, each framed not as an exception, but as part of a tapestry of Black excellence. But the influence wasn't just celebrity worship. Beauty standards were rewritten page by page. Ebony celebrated dark skin and natural hair long before mainstream magazines caught up. Fashion spreads highlighted African-inspired style without apology. Readers saw themselves as worthy of luxury, education, entrepreneurship, and joy. Jet did what a weekly should. It kept score. Civil rights marches, court decisions, school desegregation, black elected officials breaking new ground, sports records falling, Motown climbing the charts. It was all there. Beauty of the Week became iconic and debated, but unmistakably visible. It said everyday women deserved glossy pages, too. Whether you loved that feature or questioned it, you couldn't deny its cultural imprint. Johnson also looked beyond the page. The Ebony Fashion Fair hit the road with lavish runway shows across the country. It wasn't just entertainment. It raised millions for scholarships and community groups, and it brought haute couture to audiences who rarely saw it up close. Out of that success grew Fashion Fair Cosmetics, one of the first major lines formulated specifically for darker skin tones at a time when drugstore shelves stopped at beige. That wasn't just a business move. It was an intervention in an industry that treated black women as an afterthought. In 1971, Johnson Publishing opened its striking headquarters on Michigan Avenue in Chicago, a modernist showpiece with exuberant interiors. That building said, "We are not a side project, we are an institution." Inside, editors and photographers were building one of the most important photo archives in American media. Millions of images documenting everyday black life and extraordinary black history. Church services and protests, album cover shoots and funerals, HBCU homecomings and White House visits. By the 1980s, Ebony's circulation topped 2 million. The magazines influenced how advertisers talked to black audiences, how candidates courted black voters, and how black families imagined their futures. There were spin-offs and experiments like Ebony Jr., a children's magazine, calendars, special issues, and televised specials that turned the brand into an ecosystem. At their peak, Ebony and Jet didn't just reflect the culture, they shaped it by choosing which stories to elevate, which photos to immortalize, and which possibilities to place on the kitchen table where decisions get made. But every empire reaches a turning point. For Ebony and Jet, the turn came quietly at first, in the form of a glowing rectangle that fit in your pocket, and a new advertising economy that didn't care how many coffee tables you'd conquered. Before we dive into the downfall of Ebony and Jet, if you're into this kind of deep dive storytelling on black history and media, hit like, subscribe to Aggressive Intelligence, and turn on notifications. We tell the stories they don't teach in school, stories that explain how we got here. Okay, let's talk about how a media empire collapsed almost overnight. The early 2000s changed media faster than most legacy brands could pivot. The internet trained audiences to expect instant news for free, and it trained advertisers to chase clicks and data instead of long-term brand association. Publishing that had thrived on subscriptions and full-page ads suddenly had to master SEO, analytics dashboards, programmatic ad buys, and social platforms whose rules changed monthly. Ebony and Jet saw the wave and tried to ride it. They launched websites and ramped up digital content, but the web rewarded speed and volume. Ebony's traditional strength was curation and prestige. Online, if you weren't first, you risked being invisible. And if you were first but not optimized for the algorithm, it could still feel like shouting into the wind. A major shock came in 2005 when John H. Johnson died at 87. The founder's vision, equal parts editorial instinct and relentless business hustle, had been the gravitational force that held the empire together. His daughter, Lyndon Johnson Rice, stepped in, facing the same brutal economics that were hurting almost every magazine, from Newsweek to local dailies. Print ad budgets shrank. Younger readers didn't form the same habit of buying magazines. Social media taught celebrities to speak directly to fans, reducing the need for glossy gatekeepers. By 2010, layoffs came in waves. Issues got thinner. The fight to hold attention against rising digital native outlets, quick, data-savvy players born on the internet, was relentless. In 2014, Jet ended its weekly print edition and went digital only. For readers who grew up slipping that pocket-sized magazine into a purse or jacket, this felt like a death in the family. Many didn't make the jump online. The ritual of buying and sharing a physical copy turned out to be part of the bond. In 2016, Johnson Publishing sold the Ebony and Jet brands to an outside investment group. Sometimes a sale brings fresh capital and a clean slate. Just as often, it brings cost-cutting and turbulence. Over the next few years, the brand struggled to regain their footing. Freelancers sued over unpaid invoices. Staff turned over. The site's voices drifted in search of the right tone for a fragmented audience already loyal to new players with deeper digital chops. By 2019, layoffs and operational pauses signaled a breaking point. Bankruptcy proceedings followed. It was heartbreaking not just because jobs and a legacy were at stake, but because of what lay in the vaults. The photo archive. Millions of negatives, prints, and contact sheets capturing the face of Black America across 7 decades. Here's the rare bright spot. A foundation-led consortium stepped in to buy that archive at auction, with the intent to preserve it and donate it to major cultural institutions so the public, scholars, and artists could access it. John H. Johnson took a $500 risk and built a mirror big enough for a people to see themselves with pride. For generations, Ebony and Jet didn't just cover the news. They gave our lives context, glamour, and dignity. Their disappearance is a warning about how fast institutions can fall. Their legacy is a challenge to build better, smarter, and stronger, while we still have the chance. This is aggressive intelligence, the history they don't teach in school. If this gave you a new way to see Ebony and Jet, tap like, subscribe, and share it with someone who kept a stack of issues in their home. And in the comments, tell us your earliest Ebony or Jet memory. Let's make the thread a little archive of our own.